Hello students. In this class, we will discuss about the remaining protein structure prediction methods. In the previous class of bioinformatics, we discussed about comparative modeling of protein structure prediction. Obviously, that is the best method of protein structure prediction. But we have also other protein structure prediction methods that need to be discussed. So this class is going to be on the other protein structure prediction methods that include secondary structure prediction methods, fold recognition, and ab initio methods. First, let's discuss about secondary structure prediction methods. As we discussed, the comparative modeling is the method for predicting the three-dimensional structure of protein. Though it is the best method of protein structure prediction, the disadvantage with comparative modeling is that if there is unavailability of the template structure, in that case, we cannot predict the protein structure. That means the three-dimensional structure cannot be predicted in case of the unavailability of the homologous template. So in such cases, when there is no template structure available from the structural databases, then we can go for the alternative structure prediction, that is secondary structure prediction. As the name suggests, with this secondary structure prediction, we will obtain the secondary structural conformation of the protein. It does not give you the three-dimensional structure, but we would be able to predict the secondary structural conformation of each and every amino acid residue that is present in the protein sequence for which structure needs to be determined. And you all know what are the secondary structural conformations. There are three different secondary structural conformations that do exist in protein structures. They are alpha helices, beta strands, and coil structures. So when we go for the secondary structure prediction, we have to come up with the prediction of each and every amino acid residue in which structural conformation it presents. So basically it predicts the conformational state of each residue in any of these three categories, that could be helical or extended strand or coil conformation. Many of these methods of secondary structure prediction, they are based on secondary structure propensity of the amino acids. What is the secondary structure propensity of amino acid? It's a number which reflects the tendency of this amino acid residue for a particular secondary structure. In the next slide, I'll show you some data which will give you clarity about the secondary structure propensity of amino acids. And the secondary structure prediction methods, they had been trained on database of known structures. All these methods had been developed based on the data that is available in the databases of known protein structures. Look at this table. This table gives the secondary structure propensity of different amino acids. If you look at glutamate, it has got the strong propensity or high propensity for helical conformation, whereas the propensity value is less for beta strand conformation. This propensity value indicates its preference to be in a particular secondary structural conformation. Since the alpha helical propensity is high for glutamate, it is tend to be present in helix conformation. Similarly, if you look at the valine residue, its helical propensity is 0.9, whereas its strand propensity is 1.87. That means it has got the strong preference to be present in beta strand conformation. Likewise, if you look at the hydrophobic amino acid like phenylalanine, both the propensities are high values, 1.16 and 1.33, higher than 1. That means they have the preference to be present in both the structural conformations. I mean, both the secondary structural conformations like alpha helix and beta strand. Such amino acids tend to make up the structural core of the proteins. Such amino acids that have got the preference to be present in both the secondary structural conformations, they tend to make up the structural core of the protein. Likewise, you can look at certain amino acids like proline. Both the propensities are lower than the average value. That means both the propensities are of low value. That means they don't have preference to be present in either alpha helix or beta strand conformation. Such amino acids tend to be in random coil conformations. This is what the secondary structure propensity of amino acid. It is basically a number which indicates its preference to be present in particular type of secondary structural conformation. So as I discussed in the previous slide, these secondary structure prediction methods are basically on their secondary, these secondary structure prediction methods are basically based on the secondary structure propensity of the amino acids that are present in the protein sequence. So there are two important algorithms we need to discuss, which are the secondary structure prediction methods. The first algorithm is Shouw-Fasman method. This Shouw-Fasman are the scientists who had developed this algorithm. That is why the name is given as Shouw-Fasman method, and it is a rule-based method. Whereas the second method of secondary structure prediction is GOR method. This GOR method, it's also named after the scientists that who had developed this algorithm, Garnier, Osgathorpe, Robson. Garnier, Osgathorpe, Robson. These are the three scientists who had developed this algorithm. That is why the name GOR method is given to this prediction method. It is information-based method. First, let's discuss the details about Shouw-Fasman method, how the secondary structural conformations are predicted using this Shouw-Fasman method. In this method, a helix is predicted if in a stretch of 6 residues. In the protein sequence, if you take a stretch of 6 residues, in those 6 residues, 4 should be of helix favoring. 4 residues among the six residues should be of helix favoring. That means they should have the higher helix propensity, and the average value of the helix propensity of these 4 amino acids out of the 6 should be greater than 1, and the average helix propensity also should be greater than the average strand propensity. Please don't get confused. I'm talking about Shouw-Fasman method of secondary structure prediction. Here, a alpha helix is predicted in a stretch of 6 residues. 4 should be helix favoring. That means their average helix propensity should be high. Not only that, the second condition is that out of these 6 residues, 4 should be favoring alpha helix propensity, and the average helix propensity should be greater than 1. And the third condition is their average helix propensity also should be greater than average strand propensity. In that case, the stretch of 6 residues will be predicted as alpha conformation. In a stretch of 6 residues, 4 should be helix favoring. Condition number 1. Condition number 2, their average helix propensity should be greater than 1. Condition number 3, their helix propensity should also be greater than strand propensity. In that case, that stretch of 6 residues will be predicted as alpha conformation. Such a helix conformation will be extended along the sequence until a residue like proline is found, because proline is known to be helix breaker. If proline comes in the sequence, that's where the helix conformation ends. Or otherwise, this helix conformation goes on till you find a stretch of 4 residues with helical propensity less than 1 is found. So fulfilling all the 3 conditions, whatever I discussed, if a stretch of 6 residues is predicted to be alpha helical conformation, such a helix conformation will be extended along the sequence. Either it finds helix breaker like proline, or a stretch of 4 residues whose helix propensity is less than 1 is found. Till there, the alpha helix conformation will be extended. This is about how do we predict alpha conformation in a given sequence of protein. Coming to the beta strand prediction. When do you predict a stretch of amino acids as beta conformation? In a stretch of 5 residues, 3 should be favoring strand propensity. The condition number 1. Condition number 2, the average strand propensity should be greater than 1.04. Third condition, the average strand propensity also should be greater than average helix propensity. In that case, that stretch of 5 residues will be predicted as beta strand conformation. Such a beta strand conformation will be extended along the sequence until you find stretch of 4 residues whose strand propensity is less than 1. In that case, the strand conformation will be disrupted. I hope you guys are able to follow. I'm talking about Shouw-Fasman method, which is an algorithm for the secondary structure prediction. Here, the alpha helix conformation is predicted if in a stretch of 6 residues, 4 are favoring the helix conformation. That means their helix propensity is higher, and the average helix propensity should be greater than 1, and also the average helix propensity should be greater than the strand propensity. In that case, such a stretch of 6 residues will be predicted as alpha conformation. Such alpha helix will be extended along the sequence till an amino acid like proline is found, or a stretch of 4 residues with helix propensity with average helix propensity less than 1 is found. Coming to the beta conformation prediction, in a stretch of 5 residues, 3 should be favoring the strand propensity, and the average value of the strand propensity should be greater than 1.04, and it also should be greater than the average helix propensity. In such case, that stretch of 5 residues will be predicted as beta strand conformation, and such a strand is extended along the sequence until a run of 4 residues or a stretch of 4 residues with strand propensity less than 1 is formed. So this Shouw-Fasman method, it considers to be a simple rule-based method. And another algorithm, that is GOR method. As I told you, it is named after the scientists Garnier, Osgothorpe and Robson. It is information-based method. Why is it called information-based method? Because it is based on the information carried by one particular amino acid in combination with the other amino acids in a local window of 8 residues on either side in the sequence of the residue concerned. That means it considers the secondary structural information carried by one amino acid in combination with the other amino acids which are present in a local window of 8 residues on either side in the sequence of the residue concerned. So both these algorithms, whichever used for secondary structure prediction, be it Shouw-Fasman method or GOR method, the accuracy of these methods is just around 60%, not more than that. So to improve the accuracy of these secondary structure predictions, they have considered the multiple sequence information. What is this multiple sequence information and how this information will be helpful in improving the accuracy of the secondary structure prediction methods? After the prediction, you can go for the multiple sequence alignment of the similar protein sequences. When I say similar protein sequences, they could be the same family members. So when you carry out the multiple sequence alignment of your sequence for which structure needs to be predicted, along with the related protein sequences, when you carry multiple sequence alignment, you can compare the secondary structural conformation with the other sequences that are aligned. Say, for example, a stretch of amino acids is predicted to be alpha helix. If that particular stretch in the other sequences also happen to be alpha helix, then that information gives the predictive evidence, that gives the confirmation that whatever you have predicted is of right prediction. That is why if you go for multiple sequence information with the related protein sequences, that can improve the prediction accuracy up to 66%. How does it improve the prediction accuracy? By revealing the patterns of conservation, which is indicative of certain secondary structure. So as I told you, if it predicts it to be alpha helix, if such sequences are of same alpha helical conformation, that means that the other sequences to which you have carried out multiple sequence alignment, for those sequences, structures would have been available. So if those structural conformations are found to be same as the predicted conformation of your protein sequence, which is the target sequence, you are trying to predict the structure, that gives the evidence for your prediction. So by applying this information from multiple sequence alignment, the prediction accuracy can be improved up to 66%. What are the tools available for this secondary structure prediction? So whatever the methods we discussed in the earlier slide, the algorithms, those are the principles on which the secondary structure prediction methods had been developed, like the way Shou-Fosman method and GOR method. Those are the algorithms. Based on those algorithms, several tools had been developed for carrying out this secondary structure prediction. Few such tools are listed here. DSC, NNSSP. This NNSSP is, one second. This NNSSP is nearest neighbor secondary structure prediction. Nearest neighbor secondary structure prediction. Likewise, we also have Predator, PHD, PSI Pred. These are the few of the tools available for secondary structure prediction. In the third semester, you will be working with few of these secondary structure prediction tools, and you will be predicting the secondary structure for the given protein sequence. Moving on to the next structure prediction method, that is fold recognition. This is also called as threading. If you remember, the principle on which comparative modeling method works is similarity in sequence is sufficient to guarantee similarity in structure. We discussed in detail, if there are two sequences, at least if they are 25% identical in terms of their sequence, then they tend to adopt the same structural conformation. That's the theoretical basis for comparative modeling. But however, during the evolution, structure is more strongly conserved than sequence, which means that there are proteins that have got similar structure, though there is no sufficient amount of sequence identity. So as we discussed in case of comparative modeling, though there is no sequence identity, at least 25%, but still the three-dimensional structures are similar. That means many distantly related proteins are also available with a similar structure, though the sequence identity is less than 25%. So this is the fact which is exploited in fold recognition methods. That's how the fold recognition methods, they aim to detect these distant relationships. The aim of this fold recognition methods is to identify the proteins that have got the similar, that have got the similar structural fold irrespective of the sequence similarity. Just to put it in simple words, the fold recognition method aims to identify the compatible protein structures, though there is no sequence similarity for the query sequence. You have your query sequence for which protein structure needs to be determined. One method we discussed in detail was comparative modeling, but for comparative modeling, we need to have the homologous template structure for which structure had been determined. In case if the template structure or homologous template structure is not available for such sequences, the alternative method we can go for is secondary structure prediction method, which we have discussed just now. But the secondary structure prediction method that does not give the three-dimensional structural conformation for your target sequence. It only concludes the secondary structural conformation. But there is also one more structure prediction method available, fold recognition. What it does is it searches for the distantly related proteins that have got the compatible structural fold for your query sequence, though there is no significant sequence similarity. I hope you guys are following. These fold recognition methods, they operate by searching through a library of known protein structures. This library of known protein structures is called a fold library. This fold library is again a database of the protein structures. But when it is searching for the, the fold library, it does not care about the sequence similarity. So this fold recognition method, they try to find the most compatible structure with the query sequence, whichever the structural fold that suits to the sequence of your query protein or the sequence of your target protein, it searches and it gives it as an output. This fold recognition method, it is also called threading. The outcome of your fold recognition is alignment between your query sequence and one or more distantly related sequences of known structure. Definitely they are distantly related sequences because it does not care for the similarity of your query sequence. Once it identifies the compatible known structures from the fold library, it gives the alignment of your query sequence and the sequence of this one or more distantly related sequences. That is why this fold recognition method, it is considered to be an extension of comparative modeling method to the distantly related protein sequences or the protein structures. Once the alignment is obtained, after identifying the distantly related proteins from the fold library, a full three-dimensional structure of the protein can be obtained using this fold recognition method just by applying the way we have carried out the method. In case of comparative modeling, in fold recognition also, the rest of the method is same. Only the difference is it searches through the fold library and it identifies the protein that has got the most suitable structure with your query sequence, and it gives you the alignment of your query sequence and the distantly related protein structures. Once the alignment is obtained, the rest of the procedure is similar to the comparative modeling. I hope you remember what is the method of comparative modeling. Once the alignment is obtained, then the alignment is divided into core region and loop regions. For core regions, as it is, the structural information is taken from the template, whereas for the loop regions, spare parts algorithm is applied. With that, the backbone structure prediction is complete. Then we have to go for the prediction of side chain residues. In case of side chain residues also, in case of identical amino acids, the information for the side chain conformations also as it is taken from the template. But in case of the non-conserved residues, that makes use of the rotamer library conformations. That's how the entire protein structure is predicted. Here also the similar method is followed, by which at the end of this procedure, you will be getting the three-dimensional structure of protein. But the only difference is that the template used is not of the protein that has got at least 25% sequence identity. It is a distantly related protein. The advantage of this fold recognition program is that it has got the potential to increase the number of protein sequences for which the structure can be predicted. Because in comparative modeling, the condition is that it should have the availability of the homologous template structure in the structural database. But here, it need not be homologous. The only thing is that it should be able to find the compatible structure from the fold library, but it need not have the sequence similarity, because of which, the number of protein sequences for which you can predict the structure, that that increases significantly by applying this fold recognition method. The program or the tool available for this fold recognition is 3D PSSM. What is this 3D PSSM? Three-dimensional position specific scoring matrix. This is a tool which is available for fold recognition method of protein structure prediction. Some disadvantages with this fold recognition method is that sometimes they do not provide accurate alignments to the fold. When the alignment is inaccurate, that will yield the poor quality models. That means poor quality structures. That is the disadvantage of fold recognition method. The last method of protein structure prediction, ab initio prediction. As you all know, the proteins naturally they fold in order to attain a state of minimum thermodynamic free energy, because you all know the systems that have got minimum thermodynamic free energy, they are more stable. In order to attain the more stable structural conformation, proteins fold into to attain the minimum thermodynamic free energy. The methods that attempt to calculate and minimize this free energy or a suitable approximation are the ab initio methods. They are based on the fundamental physical principles. Fundamental physical principles in the sense, they apply the accepted theories of quantum mechanics and statistical thermodynamic methods to predict the protein structure. So using these theories like quantum mechanics and statistical thermodynamics, currently there is no technology to calculate the exact free energy for enormous systems like proteins. Proteins, to consider them as realistic models, we need to consider with the associated solvent molecules, that is water molecules. So when you consider these associated water molecules, these proteins are very large systems containing thousands of atoms. But such enormous systems, to calculate the exact free energy using these methods, the current technology is insufficient. That is why this ab initio prediction method for structure determination remains to be unsuccessful because of the unavailability of the technology. So these are all the different protein structure prediction methods we discussed. Just to summarize, what are all the different methods? Comparative modeling is the method of choice among all the methods available. This seems to be the most accurate method, but the condition is it should have the homologous template structure from the structural database with the sequence at least having the 25% identity. If you are able to identify the homologous template from the structural database, then comparative modeling method will give you the most accurate structure prediction, and that will yield the three-dimensional structure of the protein. In case if the homologous template is not available, then the method of choice, the next method of choice would be secondary structure prediction. But this method doesn't give you the three-dimensional structure of the protein. Rather, it gives you the secondary structural conformations of the query sequence or the query protein sequence. Two important algorithms we have discussed for secondary structure prediction: Shoup-Fasman method, which is the tool-based method. The second method is GOR method. It is named after three scientists. It is information-based method, isn't it? Then I have also listed some tools which are used for secondary structure prediction of proteins like DSE, PHD, NNSP. What is NNSP? Nearest neighbor secondary structure prediction method. These are all the few tools available for secondary structure prediction. Then we discussed about fold recognition. This fold recognition also gives you three-dimensional structure, but it is based on the identification of distantly related protein structure that have got the similar three-dimensional conformation irrespective of the sequence identity, because it is based on the fact that during the evolution, the structure is more strongly conserved than sequence. Though they are distantly related in terms of sequence, they tend to have the similar structural conformation. This is the principle on which this fold recognition method has been developed. Basically, it focuses on identifying the distantly related proteins, though they do not have the sufficient amount of sequence similarity. So once the alignment of your query sequence and the distantly related protein structures is obtained, the rest of the method is similar to comparative modeling. At the end, you will be having the three-dimensional conformation, and this fold recognition increases the scope of the structure prediction for many sequences because it does not demand the homologous template structure. The last one in brief we discussed was ab initio prediction, which relies on physicochemical principles like quantum mechanics and statistical thermodynamics to predict protein structure. But this remained unsuccessful because of the unavailability of the technology to calculate the free energy for the huge systems like protein molecules when they are in association with the water molecules. As I discussed, with the current technology, the calculations of exact free energies are not possible. So that is why it is not the suitable or the choice of method for protein structure prediction. I've referred this information from Bioinformatics by Westhead. The page numbers are also given. You all can refer the book. I remember that this book had been shared. If not, you please let me know. I can share this ebook through email. Thank you very much for your patient listening. All of you, please watch the entire class. If you have any doubts, you can post on course chart on Campus Technology. Thank you very much.